again. If you're watching this video, congratulations, you've made it to the first official weekend of the academic school year. So I'm proud of you for doing that. I hope you're proud of yourselves. Hopefully you haven't overdosed on weirdness yet, building up your tolerance a little bit at this point. Today we're going to talk about measurement, and I'm going to go through it a little bit different way than I did the last time. I'm not going to speak much on this. The goal is for you to make the measurements, and of course I will be providing video of these, so you'll have to do that visually as we go through it. And then I might point out a few things along the way, but for the most part it's going to be you figuring out how these things work. You're going to have to do a lot more recording today, and so I advise you, two options that you have. Number one is to take the Word file that is posted on Canvas, download it to your computer, and then type your stuff right into that Word file. You can save it and then upload it back to me when you're done at the end. The other option is to do everything on hand, by hand I guess I should say. When you do things by hand, you can either scan them. There are apps you can use your phone to scan into a PDF, or if you have a scanner available to you. Or you could simply take pictures of them. If you take pictures of your work, then you can upload the pictures directly to Canvas separately, or you could insert them into a Word file and upload that all together. You can also take a video, and sometimes when it comes to your unit packets, recording a video may be the best thing. If you just record a video as you page through each page of the packet so that I can pause it and check to make sure that your work is complete. These are all ways that you can turn in your work. And so one of the major purposes of this measurement practice lab is to practice turning this stuff in and make sure that you're good at it before our first major lab, which comes in Unit 2. All right, so having said all that, let's get started. Make sure you have the handout so that you can follow along. All right, one quick note before we dive into the procedure for this lab. Please notice that there are 4 initial questions at the beginning of the lab. You should answer those before you look at the rest of this video. So if you haven't answered those, then please go ahead and pause the video and answer them. I'm not looking for super sophisticated answers. Don't overthink it. Just take a few minutes and answer them to the best of your ability, and then come on back and we'll continue. One other small piece of information before we get started with the procedure of the lab. We're going to use a lot of electronic probes, such as this temperature probe, to do measurement for us in our chemistry labs. In fact, your first 2 correct labs, full labs, in Units 2 and Unit 3, both use different measuring probes. We're going to use these student laptops to access the probes, although you could also use your device, your laptop, if you want to, and I can tell you how to download the software for that. We'll talk about that when we get closer to Unit 2. We're going to use a program called Sparkvue. And when you log into Sparkvue, we're going to use the sensor data setting. And what we have to do is we have to match it up to the sensor. First of all, we turn the sensor on, and then it'll register on the screen here. These operate by Bluetooth. And then we'll connect to the temperature probe, and then once it's showing up as connected, all right, it's over here, kind of slides the screen over, but you can see right here, the numbers on it will match the numbers on the probe, 462-524. We're going to go over, and we're just going to use the simple digit setting, although there's multiple ways you can record data on this. All right, and so you can see a temperature is being displayed right there. Now that temperature is not correct because I haven't actually started collecting the data. Once I click start, there we go, and I have the temperature, 21.6 degrees Celsius. That's the room temperature right now. All right, here's our first station for measurements. We're going to take the temperature of 3 different beakers of water using our temperature probe. Always check to make sure that it's on. You can tell by the little light that's flashing there. All right, we'll start with the one on the left. We'll wait for it to adjust. It may take a little while for the temperature to change. And also you may notice that the temperature can fluctuate like that. When the temperature fluctuates, it's okay to pick one. 18.9 is going to be our temperature there. All right. So 18.9 degrees Celsius, and I'll let you do the rest. and the third one. Now we try to be consistent with where we hold the temperature probe. If it's touching the bottom, it's actually going to register the temperature of the glass, which may not be the same as the temperature of the liquid in it. And if I move it around too much, the temperature may change. There we go. All right, the second part of our measurement lab involves length. Got a cube here. We're going to measure its length. I'm going to let you actually make the readings, but please note the scale that we're using, which is on the ruler. Always important to notice the scale that you're working with. We're going to talk about that again with another measurement later on. I'm going to go ahead and set this up for you to read the measurement. Go. Read and record the measurement to the best of your ability there. And we'll talk about the measurements and the techniques when we meet again on Tuesday. Station 3 for our first part of the measurement lab is mass. We use digital balances, not the hand adjusted balances. That doesn't mean that they're perfect though. Always make sure that they are zeroed before you start. We'll talk about that later on. And make sure that it's in the correct units, grams, showing on both of those. All right, so here's our first object. Okay, record your measurements. Pause and go back if you need to. Notice the little star right there. That's important in just a minute. Same thing happens on this balance as well. All right, this is the last station for part 1 of the lab, although we'll be going on to part 2 in just a little bit. I have a test tube filled to the top with water. I want to know how much water is in there. Since there's no markings on it, I'll have to pour it into a graduated cylinder. So let's do that. Now it's your job to read the volume of the water off the graduated cylinder. Notice in your instructions it talks about the curved surface of the liquid, which is called the meniscus, and your notes that follow this lab will also address the meniscus. Now it's kind of hard to see exactly what we're looking at here, and the reason is we're not looking straight at it. We're looking at it from an angle. As is usually the case when you're working in the lab, you're going to be taller than the items that you're looking at. And so what we need to do is adjust our viewpoint so that we're level with it. The way you can tell you're level is if some of the markings on one side start to line up with the same markings on the other. So some of the lines go straight through. Notice that at the 60 we're just about lined up there. Okay? Just about lined up with what's on the back. Not perfect, but close enough. This is a much better angle for us to view. All right, so first question before you read your measurement, what does each little mark represent? You need to know that. If you don't know what you're counting, then it's very difficult to determine what the actual value is. All right, and then let's zoom in a little bit more so you can get a clear look at the meniscus. There we go. All right. Turns out to be a little bit of a tricky volume, so I'll be curious to see what your answers are. Record them, and we'll discuss them on Tuesday. All right, so we're near the end of part one. There are some analysis questions on your sheet. Sorry if this is a little screwy because taking a video of a computer screen sometimes comes out messy. Just wanted to draw your attention to the analysis questions. There are 4 of them. You should answer them at this point before moving on to part 2's video.